Made in Hollywood.
The historical drama Midway, starring Patrick Wilson and Dennis Quaid, puts us right in the middle of the pivotal battle between American and Japanese forces that changed the course of World War II.
Hey, I'm Ed Skrein.
Hey, I'm the Kleintank.
You're watching Made in Hollywood.
Here's the scene.
There's this kid. He didn't think he could cut it. I figured it was just the usual jitters. I take him under my wing.
So I just got back from Pearl Harbor. I went down in the dungeon. Did you? I'm assuming you didn't actually get to film down.
What is the dungeon?
The dungeon is where they were doing all of the encrypting, like decrypting, of the messages.
Yeah, we're hypos.
Where you were working your character?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you didn't get to go down over there, did you? For this
You mean when we shot?
Yeah.
We shot out. Actually, there's a little walk and talk, as we call it, me and a Woody, that we shot in front of the building. So we did not shoot. Our interiors were not shot there, but we did shoot at that building.
He was fine to be scared.
I grew up listening to my grandma telling me stories of living in Honolulu during the attack on Pearl Harbor. So why did you want to retell this story?
It was very important to understand the Battle of Midway. You have to show the attack on Pearl Harbor. I think you have to understand Pearl Harbor to understand how important the Battle of Midway was.
They're coming! The Japs are coming! They're coming!
The first 2 weeks we shot in Hawaii, which I think was very special for the crew because you were literally going past the wreck of the Arizona on your way to work. And I think it brought this resonance that these were real people, this is a real project, and that we need to approach it from a perspective of how can we be as accurate as possible because we need to honor what these people did.
Pearl Harbor is the greatest intelligence failure in American history.
This can never happen again.
You guys, when you're in your cockpit, is that a stationary cockpit or is it on a gimbal? What did that consist of?
It's on a gimbal.
Yeah, it started on a gimbal. We had a couple of different setups. It started on a gimbal. There's some things that they would do, and they would move the actual plane. You know, in other times they would the camera arm would move and the plane would stay static. So there was a number of ways they did it, but you know, every time you had these air jets thrust in your face from inside the cockpit, these huge wind machines outside as well.
Roland did such a good job of trying to make it feel as realistic as possible. One of them being adding a bunch of wind air tubes in the planes. So whenever they'd yell action, all this air would just start blowing.
It's probably about as close as you could get to being in those planes without actually being in those planes.
What the hell is going on?
Pearl is shooting at our guys, sir.
Yeah, maybe it isn't Pearl.
There were so many things on this set that were, you know, physically informative in that regard. We had huge wind machines, much like I had on Maleficent as well.
And like we have right now.
And like we have to some extent right now.
I want to make it right. At least some of the boys still want to fight.
I want to ask you guys about being on the gimbal inside the cockpit because obviously you weren't really inside a real plane. Ed told me that you guys were saying some really bad things to each other.
On and off screen. That sounds about right.
Off screen as well?
Oh yeah.
Why?
I mean, well, see, I worked with Ed before, so you get kind of like a familiarity with him, and then you're like, oh, I can say whatever I want.
There was an amazing camaraderie, you know, that hopefully translate through. Yeah, precisely. You know, so we were cracking a lot of joke, but in truth, it was a very serious kind of shoot. You know, it was fun in the sense that this is a dream role.
The Japanese are planning something bigger.
So what's the target?
We believe it's Midway.
Washington disagrees.
Washington is wrong.
Roland Emmerich is this sort of doctor of spectacle, and he didn't disappoint, for sure.
If we lose, the Japanese own the West Coast. Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Will burn.
You are able to remake this film, but with the visual effects and technology that weren't available in 1976. Did you rewatch that original movie before you started this?
Well, I saw it as a kid, and that was I remember it had like scents around. But we like kind of don't really do a remake. We just told our own story.
I'd seen it in high school. I was familiar with it. It's a bit of a different thing than from what we've created, but
there was more blue screen in that one.
Yeah, definitely the technology.
Because they totally had that back then.
It did, yeah. Ours might be a little bit louder.
The challenge was, we know this story's been told before. What is the fresh perspective that's going to make it interesting and relatable to a modern audience?
I mean, I already knew a lot about World War II. I grew up soaking it in. My generation, my dad was in World War II, and so I knew a lot about it.